My first Sasquatch experience, I'm pretty sure, started in 2013. I went out to let the dogs out, and a rock hit the roof and fell in front of my feet. It was the size of a silver dollar. At first, I was trying to logically explain it to myself. Well, maybe my husband's snowblower ricocheted a rock on the roof, and the snow melted, and it fell in front of my feet. But that wasn't the case. There was no snow, and I did hear it hit the roof. So I just thought it may be some guy in the woods. So I brought my dogs back in the house. My second experience was I was loading up my shed from stuff from my house that I was going to have this big yard sale. And it was about 2:30 in the afternoon, and that was 2014. And when I went to go put the stuff in the shed, I found later that it was a rock that hit the shed, but it sounded like someone took a rifle to the shed. It was so loud. The ringing in my ears wouldn't stop for up to 15 minutes. And I went out and found this nickel-sized rock, and I go, how can that possibly be? Because my husband mows the grass perfectly, so it was sitting on top of a fresh green mowed lawn, and rocks are not on our lawn, and I'm just couldn't figure out what somebody would hit it that hard. I didn't think a human could do that. So I went back into the house, and as I was going, we have a gun, because I felt like I could feel like there was someone in the woods. And I said, I have some big dogs. I'm going to bring them out. And I went in the house, of course, and locked the door up. Well, that said and done. And this was 2015. And it was June 25th. And it was 10 o'clock at night. A day I'll never forget. We have a big, huge fenced-in area. We have a big spotlight out because we have bear and coyotes, raccoons, porcupines, you name it. They walk around our house because we have 100 acres behind our house. But we have, like, when they built the house, there's like dug up area that makes like a moat. So the water runs down from the hillside and it goes around the house and it goes into a big stream in front of our house. And it's beautiful. And when I I always check to see if there's any porcupines or anything out there before I let the dogs out. I had 2 big dogs. And when I went to open the door just a little bit, the husky went and pushed the door, went through my legs, and went out the door. And I knew right then we have something out there. So I ran out, and the shepherd's running towards the tree to the side of the fence, which they can't get the porcupines, but they're trying. So I yelled for my son, who was 15 at the time, to get the German shepherd and bring him in the house. He did, and then he was standing there as I'm trying to get the husky. And I ran out with my bare feet. And I had only 2 tiny flashlights that were in my coat, and I grabbed those because at the corner of the fenced area, it's pitch black and you can't see. So I ran over there trying to get the husky, and he's trying to jump the fence. He was just so focused on the porcupine. It was just like dealing with a wild wolf, and he wouldn't come. And I'm running up to the side of the fence and trying to get him. And I was like, come on, honey, come on, please, please, please. And he's like, moments like he's going to fly over this fence. And so I finally get up to him, and I'm begging him and say, honey, please, please stay still. Come on, come on. And then all of a sudden, I felt something very massive, not 50 feet in the woods at the corner of the fence. And I couldn't see it, but it was like somewhat of a silhouette that was started to stand up, but it was more that what I was feeling from it. And all of a sudden I could feel something coming towards me, and I couldn't explain it. And I'm like in shock, standing there going, oh my God, what is this? And then all of a sudden it hit me, and as it hit me, my dog is tucked tail in between him and running for the house. And he's never done that in his 11-year life. And when it hit me, I thought, I'm going to die. I'm going to die in front of my son. And all of a sudden it was like electric charge. And then I heard my son scream, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" And I turned around and I saw how white his face was and how scared he was. And I go, "What did you see?" And I'm trying to walk and run at the same time. And I saw how scared he was. He goes, "It was like a glowing see-through brown thing, like went past your stomach, Mom." And I saw how scared he was. So I said to him, "Get into the house. Get into the house. It's just a bird." Because we have grouse and stuff, and just bird. I was trying to downsize it so he wouldn't be as scared. We got into the house, but he started crying. He goes, "Why are you doing that?" And I go, "I can't stop." And it was like I was having like a seizure, and I was like, "I can't stop." And we just both started crying, and it took 15 minutes for this electricity to get out of my body. And we went in the living room and sat and talked for a couple hours just to calm down. And he had school the next day, and he says, "I think I'm good now, Mom. I'm going to go to bed." I said, "Okay." Then I noticed he left a lot of his dishes in the living room. So I picked them up and went over to the sink. And right to my left is the stove where the vent is. And before I got to the sink, I'm hearing this moaning. And it's so deep, like you were standing beside a giant. It was just so deep and long and so sad and mournful. And I felt so sad for him. And then the weird part was I was seeing how he was sitting, and I go, "How can I see how he's sitting?" And he's sitting in a fetal position, sitting down, and I could see he's not that far from my house. And he's rocking, and he's saying, I'm sorry, didn't mean to. And I was like, because the mother in me, I'm like, "Oh, it's okay, hon, it's okay. I understand you meant to help me to keep the dog from the porcupine." And he's like, so sorry, didn't mean to. And he kept rocking. And then he stopped crying, and then I went and put the dishes in the sink and turned around and went, "Oh my God, what just happened?" So I was up for another couple hours trying to rationalize. And so I went to bed, and it was about 2. And I just about to lay down, and I heard this deep, deep voice, and it sounded like it was in my bedroom. And we're upstairs, and it said in a female, very, very deep voice, "Here." And I opened my eyes, and I went, what's going on? And then it was quiet, and I went to lay back down again, and it did it again, "Here." And I opened my eyes, and I go, okay, this is crazy. And so I sat up on my elbows, and I went, okay. And then nothing. And then when I closed my eyes, still sitting up, she goes, "Here." And I go, "Yes." And I answered her, and she said, "I wanted to make sure you knew you were not sleeping. You are awake." And then she was showing me that her son was not supposed to be here this long. It is forbidden for him to be here this long, and that they will do what they must do And of course the mother in me is like, oh, don't punish them too harsh. And it was basically, she gave me impressions. They don't discipline like humans do. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what that meant. And then she said, there is many of us. And she showed me, in vision-wise, her little girl, which was 2 at the time, and she was like double the size of our 2-year-olds, and was sitting beside her on a log, and she was sitting on the log, and her juvenile son was behind her. And then she showed me what we would call husband, but she calls protector. As soon as she did, I was feeling his energy, and I started to start shaking, and I know this sounds so weird, she put this calming effect over me, and it calmed me back down, because I got really scared. And she turns her head to the right, because he is to the left of her. And she goes, he does not know I am doing this with you, talking to you. And I was like, okay. And then she showed me that there's many of them, and she gave me like faces, and they all look different. She goes, there's good ones and there's bad ones, but not many. And we tried to keep them away. And then she showed her husband, I say husband, her protector, and she started to say, he will do what he must do. And she repeated it 4 times. And I noticed when she was doing the 4-time thing, it was for me to remember, not to forget. That was the impression she was giving me. And then I started to feel his energy again. And then she calmed me down again. And she had the overbearing love. That words can't describe how much she cared. And I was like, I did not know that they were even like this, or that they were even capable of talking with you. And things that I was thinking, she was like answering before I could even finish my sentences. And I thought that was crazy. And she said, when she took me, like, it's like you become one. It's so bizarre. And she was showing me visions of Earth and how beautiful it was. And then she said that they were here before men. And they've seen what men have done. And it is time for them to come out. The Earth is hurting, she says. And more will hear them. More with good spirit will hear them. And we need to love one another, not just love, is saying lightly. She meant truly love yourself so you can love others and love Earth and be out more in nature. We are losing who we truly are supposed to be. And we need to work together to save Earth. And then she brought me back, and she started to give me message on there is some things that are not like them that are out in the woods. And don't go alone. She kept warning me, don't go alone. There is some, she said, rogues she said more in the Appalachian trails. Don't go alone, especially men, young men. they don't like men because they've seen what men have done. So some of them do not care for them at all. And she said some down south are more shorter, but they don't have the same capacity as they do. It's like there's different levels of them. She says some are really, really big, and some have the ability to mind speak. We can teach this if our children wish to be taught. It's not forced upon them, she was saying. And then she was back to warning me, if you hear a woman cry or a baby cry or whistling or a voice that sounds like your family member calling you into the woods, do not go at all. She said, stay out. She said that she would protect us, and if we called, that she would come, if need be. There was a lot of, from her juvenile son, when he was here for over every night, for over 4 months, he did a lot of tree knocking, branch breaking. He would, it was 8 feet high, the branches would break, and then dead silent. It'd be 10 feet apart, and he'd break another one. And 2 weeks prior, I had my son come out with me because I was feeling like something was out there. But every time I had brought my son out, the juvenile would act up really bad. The knocks were so loud that you couldn't hear. And I was like, okay, never mind coming out with me. Whatever's out there does not like you being out with me. I said, so you can stay inside, which he had no problem. Then there was a time where it was the blood moon, and I said, well, they don't come out front. And me and my son love looking at the stars and the changing of the moon, and we were going to videotape it. And so I went out front, and about 10 minutes out there, not 50 feet, there's this huge pine tree. And all of a sudden something hit it so hard, and I went, dang. So I ran inside, and I ran to the window on that side, and I said, who are you? And all of a sudden, it sounded like a dump truck crashed and dropped right in there. And then it did it 3 times, and it scared me. So I shut the window and just started crying. And my son said, get dad. And I said, no, he won't believe this stuff. And so he begged me, and so I got him. I did it for him, and my husband was so exhausted, he just sat on the couch. And then we heard something hit his truck, and he wanted to go check it. I said, no, don't even go out. And he wouldn't listen, and he goes, it's a pine cone. And I just went, there's no pine cones that can hit your truck. And then my husband, because we heard something hit his truck, he went out, and I begged him not to, and he did anyways. And he said that a pine cone hit the side of the truck. And I said, that's not possible. There's no pine cones to do that. And so he came in, and he sat with us, trying to comfort us. And then nothing more happened, and he went to bed. I went outside, and I stopped in my track, and I could sense that there was a big one coming through, and he was so agitated with me. And he mind speaked and said, I did not know. And I was like, did not know what? And he goes, I did not know humans could do this. No, I'm here. And he was so frustrated and agitated and almost angry. And he said, just going through, look away. And he kept on walking. And a few months later, 2017, I was cleaning someone's house, and it's a town over, and I took her 2 golden retrievers out, and all of a sudden, the young golden retriever, they didn't have dog collars on, and he's like pointing towards the pathway, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he looks like he's going to go after it. So I grab him around the neck, and I hold him, and I look, and I see this child-sized silhouette of, it sounds weird, water. It was like see-through, but you could see it moving, and it was like crouched down, like nervous and scared, like it was shimmering, and the dog's like growling and wanting to go get it, and I'm like, no, I have no idea what that is. And then 3 times it attempted to get it, and I go, no. And then all of a sudden it just disappeared, and I got the dogs in the house. And the weird part was, there was no memory of it while I was cleaning the house. I didn't even think of it. And then the last time after done cleaning, I went to take the dogs out, one last potty out, and we went right behind the garage again, where it was located, and all of a sudden, and it's late fall, there's no leaves, right up above the trees was this, it sounded like a giant baby crying. And I froze, the pups froze, they're all looking up, and I go, okay, that's weird, that's not possible. And so I grab the dogs, and as I'm going to the house, you're not forgetting, because it flashed back, remembering about the water child. And I got the dogs in the house, locked up, went to my car, don't forget, and I drove all the way home, don't forget. I go, somehow you forgot before. I think that was so bizarre. And so then I wrote it down. And there was a time when 6 months later I was driving down a road with my son, and all of a sudden I had a surge, like electricity through my whole body, and I slammed on the brakes. Thank God no one was behind me. And I saw this big guy, silhouette of him in the woods, and he's PO'd at me for knowing he was there. And he goes, look away. He was so angry with me. He goes, look away. Going through, look away. And then I was like, okay. My son's like, what? And I go, he's there. And he goes, who? And I go, never mind. And so I just kept on driving, but I would look away, not looking over towards that area, and got home. And those are my stories of, I call them forest people. For me, that was respecting her and him. And so from then on, I've always called them forest people.
If you've had a paranormal experience and would like to be a guest on the show, please contact us by going to myparax.com. That's myparaex.com. Thanks for listening.